It's 6:30, so I'm going to end all our fun and get this meeting going. Who's ready to start the September meeting of the Champaign County Board Facilities Committee? Yeah, let's get a roll call.
Crane,
Here.
Furtado, Greer,
Here.
Hanauer Friedman,
Here.
Vanish Theranot,
Here.
Wiggs,
Here.
Wilson,
Here.
Lakshan.
Here. All right. Can we get a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting? Moved by Greer, second by Wilson. All in favor? Any opposed? All right. And can we get a motion to approve the minutes from the August 5th, 2025 meeting? Moved by Crane, second by Wiggs. All in favor? Any opposed? Great, okay. Any communications from the Facilities Committee? Mr. Wilson.
Thank you. Happy VJ Day. Today is Victory in Japan Day, when World War II ended and brought a lot of peace to the world. And I thought about it a little bit. My father fought in the Pacific War. Have you ever seen the movie Pacific? Like the Band of Brothers. It's similar, only it's out in the Pacific Islands. But interesting, my dad was somewhere out there in an airplane on a 50 caliber machine gun out in China, India, Burma, somewhere. But thank you for all those patriots that gave us the freedoms that we so enjoy today. Happy VJ Day.
Any other communications? All right, moving on to new business. We'll have an update on ARPA capital projects. Looks like we're passing around some documentation on that from Michelle. So here we go.
It's just the same spreadsheet from before. I just added, there was a request for a column of what's actually been paid versus what's just been billed versus what the estimated cost is. So I did add that. And I updated some of the statuses. We're moving forward on a lot of them. The Pope Jail roof work starts, I think, next week. They've been out, they've met with the jail staff, gone through all those details. So that's moving forward. The roof project includes the foundation joint repair. That's part of that. The smaller projects for the jail include the grease trap. We've ordered the parts. We're just waiting on them to arrive. We're also having to do replace the floor of the walk-in cooler. That's happening next week. Here at Bennett, we had gone back and forth on the fourth floor about what to do with the glass on the west side of the lobby. And we actually decided to go with, I feel like this rarely happens, but the cheapest option, which was we just drywalled it closed. So there's no glass there now. So instead of purchasing more bulletproof glass, we will get some kind of savings back from that by going to the drywall instead. If you drove around back, you saw the fountain's gone. It's been ripped out. And they're now working on leveling it. And then we'll put in a whole concrete pad for the dumpster and a few more parking spots. But mostly for the dumpster access is the problem that we're trying to fix. The courthouse boilers continue to be problematic. We're waiting on the new boiler that we ordered to arrive, but we also discovered a leak today in one of them. I think it's a completely different one, so we're trying to address that as well. I don't have an update yet from the architect around Judge Rosenbaum's proposal of splitting a courtroom into two. I think we talked about that last meeting, right? Okay, so I don't have any more information about that yet at this time. We have not done anything yet for the MatCAD or the Ilias stuff. The JDC things, the architect is continuing to put together plans. So one of the things that we have our fingers crossed on is for the window replacement. The original plan was to replace the entire window sill, which is stainless steel all the way around. And the architect thinks that they might actually be in good enough condition that we just need to redo the flashing and the ceiling around them. I don't know, that sounds like generally the right word, I think. So I'm waiting to hear back officially on that. But if we don't need to replace the window seals, that would dramatically reduce the cost of that project. I'm trying to get I'm trying to get our landscaping people together with the JDC people to make some decisions around this exterior fencing as to how far out it's going to go and how high it's going to be. Thinking through just costs, but also like how are we going to mow around it and security of getting in and out of it, that kind of stuff. So that is almost ready to get started. We just need to make those decisions. The parking, I think I signed off on that last week, so we're moving forward with that. That's a pretty straightforward project. So for the building automation controls, one of our larger projects at the courthouse, we're waiting on Alpha Controls to finish an energy audit, because part of the building automation controls will be to reduce our energy usage, because the building controls will automatically cool and heat as dictated by scheduling and occupancy and things like that. But they want a base level. So it's actually just been a couple months of us just using the building as we normally use it, so they can get a gauge of what that looks like. And then we'll be able to move forward with that project. Replacing the door access system at the courthouse is moving forward. Have not started anything on the Metcad roof or the Pope jail. Holding off on the garage skins for a while. I am working with the coroner to get her pieces done. They're going to be winter projects just due to the volume of work that we have on other things that need to be done right now. And the nursing home, not much different there. Just Bailey Edwards, who's doing the nursing home demolition, and GHR, who is putting together the project quote and specs for replacing the air handler units at Ilias, are now talking to each other, because if we're going to do that, we need to do them all together, because tearing down the nursing home will give us access to the basement so that we can get the air handlers in. So not only do we now have two large projects, but we have two large projects that we need to get to work with each other. So just to make it extra fun on that one. So, and that's about it for the ARPA stuff. Any questions?
How are we doing on, I guess, budgeted versus what we have available to use at this point?
What do you?
Any kind of ballpark on, like, do we think the ones that there's no movement on yet, that there will be budget for those, or are we looking pretty?
I would say at this point, I'm not moving on those because I don't think that we're going to have money for them at this point. So I think by the end of this year, we'll have a better idea, because we'll have wrapped up the biggest one, which is the jail roof. So as long as that, sticks to its budget, that will be helpful for us to determine. And some other ones will be much farther along. So we'll have a better idea by the end of the year. But yeah, I've intentionally not picked up those other ones at this point.
Thank you. Any other questions on these? Okay. Oh, Mr. Wilson.
What was our ballpark budget target number?
I think it was 3 million.
Was it 3 million?
Yeah.
Next on the agenda is the Pope Jail project update. You just gave us some of that in the ARPA funding. Is there more detailed information you had to share, or are we covered on that?
Yeah, I don't know, like, if you guys are on facilities, because you just literally like how facilities projects work. I don't know if that's your thing, but it's a pretty big project. It's going to be very loud because of what they're doing and the way a jail is constructed, that it's all steel and concrete. So it's going to be pretty disruptive. There will be a couple of days, I think they're going to have to close down the kitchen because they'll have to turn off exhaust vents. So then the jail has to get waivers, because they're required to serve 2 hot meals a day. But if you really shut the kitchen down for any amount of time, there's so many people to feed that it basically means that you're not gonna be able to do a hot meal. So the jail's staff is taking care of all of that, but that's stuff that I thought was interesting. Met with the contractor and his on-site crew leaders last week, and they had a lot of questions. They seemed to be really engaged. I felt like it was a really productive meeting. So I think they're going to be very respectful that the jail is it's not just like a typical building where you're going in and doing the roof. There's going to be quite a few considerations that they're going to have to work around, and they seem to be willing to do that. So and they're expecting to start this month. And I think they are planning to be done like pretty much right at Thanksgiving. So,
Any questions on the Pope Jail project? Ms. Furtado?
I forget. Did we have a PLA on that?
we do. You guys approved it, and I need to catch up to East Central Illinois Building Trades this week and get their signatures on it, and then it'll be done.
So once the labor starts, could we get those monthly
Yes.
labor breakdowns?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
I'm probably not, unless you are specifically asking for it, not going to have the contractor come in. I don't like. It doesn't seem like that caliber of project, but maybe if we start getting data and you have questions, we could have them come in. But I think to get started, we probably be
That
okay.
sounds fair.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to Brookins use discussion. And this was, again, discussion only.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if we wanted to revisit this after the board meeting and what our thoughts were, but timing is becoming an issue. The ICERT program is basically ready to move forward with Bailey Edwards for the architectural engineering aspect for the renovations to Pod 400. And RPC is ready to move forward on finalizing the lease. So both of those have now been slowed a bit. We don't want to sign something that then there's a problem with. So I wasn't sure if there were concerns that you all wanted to go over, or I didn't know where to go from here, I guess is kind of the point.
Well, I guess I'll start out with the one that I had asked you about specifically during the budget presentations with the CASA folks looking for space and budgeting for zero with rental. I had gone to Michelle and asked if it was something that was possible maybe for FY26 that we offer them a zero rental agreement and then begin charging rent if we do continue holding the building and looking for clients. Just because we have at this point RPC in there for that year. And it is a way that, like Julia said, it's a way that we as a county can support their work without actually spending money other than the cost that we're already laying out on the building. Ben?
Maybe next month, or maybe you know it now, but do you have an idea like what kind of revenue this is going to generate when it's rented at, say, 25, 50, 75, and 100% rented out?
We can talk about 100%.
Okay.
I have that.
Although I assume that
What-
would
what
vary
percent-
too. Yeah, based on
What
like
percentage does RPC take up from
right.
the percentage?
So they have all of Pod 200 right now, except for the little office that Planning and Zoning had. Otherwise, they have that entire pod. And then they also want to consolidate all of their Head Start staff into the northern half of the old admin hallway. So that would be an addendum to their current lease. And then ICERT, which is a program of RPC, wants all of the gym pod, so the whole thing, and then the old Shields Carter and the old Putman rooms over there.
So is that about 30%?
I think that's what I'd heard was it's about 30% of the building.
Does that sound?
Yeah, I mean, it leaves, so it leaves like the county clerk's space open, and then it leaves all of Pod 200, except for where the auditor is, would be available as well. Everything else, for the most part, would be full at that point from RPC. So they would be the main tenant.
So is that's more than 30% then, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's probably more than 30%. Yeah.
50?
Yeah, I mean, it might even be a little bit more than 50 because they have basically 2 pods right there,
Out
and
of-
then some extra stuff as well
Out of 3, right?
out of
Oh, out of 4.
4?
4.
Yeah.
No, 3. Maybe 3.
Jason knows.
Yeah, Jason, what is it?
4? It is 4. Okay.
Oh, because it's the middle. Yes.
Jason, do you mind, like, Can you come up and say that into the mic just so everybody can hear it? Thank you. I appreciate you having the knowledge to help us out here.
Yeah, I am the custodian with a duty assignment in Brookings, so I am more familiar with that building than with the situation now than anybody else who's in here. RPC currently holds all of Pod 100, with the exception of a small office that was the former planning and zoning. And as Michelle said, they're looking to take the north portion of the former admin hallway in 300. I would estimate that that combined is probably 30 to 35% of the building. Then ICERT is looking at all of 400 plus former Shields Carter, former Putman. That's probably another 30% of the building. So the remaining area would be all of 200 plus most of the former clerk suite, which is probably 30 to 35% of the building.
Thank you. Ben?
So, excuse me. In an ideal world, if you had it fully rented out, what type of revenue is the county looking at from that building?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the name of that document because I have too many documents.
But yes, in the meantime, I think my caveat on that was that it depends on the rents that we charge, and I guess that's dependent upon the tenant. So, and their needs and their,
If I recall,
Yeah.
I think Michelle said she had it down to the square foot. So
mhm,
that would basically, if they want,
right.
I don't know, 20,000 square feet, they would be charged a set amount, I guess.
Yep.
So if we were charging kind of our lowest price point, which is the price point that covers all of our current estimated costs, fully rented for an entire year, it'd be about $486,000.
And that's profit over.
It's not profit because that includes like paying the staff, that maintenance and custodial staff, paying for a building supervisor, purchasing the paper supplies, paying the utility bills, paying the water bill, IT services, because we still have to have the fiber network go to that location. So we have to maintain that, and then contributing a portion to a capital fund. So there's no profit at the lowest price.
Mr. Wicks.
What portion of that would go towards capital projects?
So of the $14.67, $5.81 per square foot goes to capital. So in a year,
Yeah, that's about 35%.
so it's about $500,000 a year that goes into the capital fund.
Is that based on the square footage available? Daniel, will you turn your mic back on when you?
I'm sorry. I thought that I heard you say 486 total. So if 35% of 4,
Yeah, hold on. I'm looking at my spreadsheet.
Well, we're doing math here. Stephanie, did you have? You wait. Okay.
Sorry, it's not a spreadsheet that I made, so I have to interpret a little bit. Yeah.
Ellie,
When is RPC's current lease?
I believe that's through 2026.
The end of 26.
Yes.
Yes, but ICERT is looking for a much longer lease for the level of renovations that they're thinking about doing.
That's the 10-year lease?
What's the square footage on the building? Sorry.
Hold on, everything's in spreadsheets.
That's okay.
93,000. But that includes like hallways, right? Like the whole thing. Okay. I think I have an answer. So yeah, I was wrong about the capital. So it's more like $285,000 for the first year. It looks like, if I'm reading this one correctly.
Stephanie?
I trying to understand what the full board's concerns were. It seemed like one of them was like, I don't know, they were worried the building was going to get struck by lightning and we were going to get hit with a big bill. Is there any way that we could establish like a nest egg capital fund? You know, because I understand, regardless of what the figure is, it's going to take a few years to build it up. Is there any way that we could establish a nest egg capital fund?
Well, I mean, that's just to jump in before Michelle does. With I understand the board's concern with that, but really that could happen to any one of our buildings. Like that's, I don't know, like isn't that what CARF is for needing to replace and needing to fix? But I know I would like a separate fund for Brookins if we are to maintain this building, but really that could happen anytime to any building. So.
Yeah, I think we have two different issues, right? So like we don't have a finance structure where the buildings that we're renting out are self-funded anyway. That's just a problem. Like we're experiencing that with Metcat and Ilias right now. They need pretty major repairs, but the money for them from their rental income just goes into the general fund. And so then it feels like, because it is, all of their repairs come out of the general fund and go through our CARF, which I'm not quite sure is the most logical way for us to be balancing that kind of budget. Like, again, those buildings, it seems like should be financially self-sufficient. So I think that's a problem we have with all of our buildings that we need to figure out. And I not necessarily know I know the exact answer right now. I think that's a kind of a conversation that between facilities and finance, we need to maybe dive into the details of a little bit, because it doesn't seem to me that we're going to get out of the business of being landlords unless there's like a will of the board that I'm not aware of, because we've got a lot of buildings. We've got Ilias, we've got Metcad, we've got the land that the Army Corps is on, we've got Brookins. Like we have quite a few things that we just, someone else uses the building, but it's our building. But we don't necessarily have the most clear and transparent financial plan for those buildings so that they're not coming out of the general fund. So I think that's one whole problem that needs to be addressed in and of itself. But I do think separately, it's a weird dynamic that we are taking Brookins out of CARF and trying to figure out how to make it financially self-sufficient, like just kind of like January 1 on your own. But like, where is the money for that, right? It would be great if there was just any level of money to seed that capital fund would be helpful. And I think I'm sure that there's somebody that probably has a good idea on that. I just don't know what it is right now.
Yes, Stephanie.
At the full board, we had discussed, I think I had suggested that we table this with the idea that facilities and finance leadership would meet like separately. Is that something that's happening?
Yeah, we have a meeting scheduled for that.
I turned myself off instead of on. Yes, we are planning to meet for that this month. And that will be discussed. I think this is, yeah. So if there's any other, thoughts from facilities, I guess, on where we should be headed with this. Like Michelle said, we've got some folks who are kind of waiting on a go from the board to know how they should proceed. Carolyn?
Worst case scenario, what financial restraint would the Brookings put on the county?
I mean, I think at any time, any of our buildings could bankrupt us, but it would take something catastrophic, right? Like an earthquake or a tornado, but also we're insured too. So I think the decision would be, we'd have probably a little bit more flexibility with Brookings, right? Because if you're leasing a building, all of your leases include the cause, if the building gets destroyed by a force of nature, you just find somewhere else to rent. Like that's not our fault. So I think we'd be out of it in that sense for that point. But like, could every single mechanical thing in the building fail at once? I guess so. But like the chances of that, right? I don't know how to prepare for that kind of thing. The roof has been replaced rather recently. The boiler system is relatively new. I think our biggest concerns are the multi-zone units and the air handler units, which are not cheap, but I think in terms of like next big problems, those are the top of the list. And then some other things are more like the carpet needs to be replaced. The masonry needs to be cleaned up, things like that. So not necessarily things that are going to prevent the building from being utilized, but we would want to take care of them to maintain the building throughout its life.
Did you have a follow-up? Yeah. Okay.
So what was the agreement and why did we make the agreement to sell the building versus maybe doing something with it once we was out of it?
So we did a lot of things. So first, at that point, RPC was seriously looking for somewhere else to rent. And so the expectation was they were going to move out by the end of next year anyway, regardless of honestly what we did in this building here, they were planning to move out. So when we were moving over here, then we did two things. We started talking to community groups to see if there was interest in like forming like a group consortium that would use the building for community development or nonprofits and things like that. And we also put together the RFP to hire a broker as well. In the midst of all that, the federal leadership changed and the RPC funding became much less stable as to what they expected it to be. So they decided to pull back on the prospect of moving out. They also, they're just not going to find something as cheap as what we have because we don't have property taxes. So our rent is just always going to consistently be less, significantly less. So when they decided to suspend their shopping around for somewhere else to move, we stopped moving forward with the RFP on the broker because at that point it just felt like things were really unstable from a federal level. And we could have sold the building and said you have to honor the existing lease for RPC. But then at the end of 26, the new owner could have told RPC, okay, get out, right? Mm-hmm. And if we don't know how things are going to shape up for them, that didn't seem like a good place to put them in. So that's kind of how we got to where we are now. The conversations with the community groups, everyone's very interested to be in Brookings. I think the lack of interest is being part of the decision making and management of the building, because that's a big ask, right? So there's been a lot of like, oh, we want to rent space, but like not like, oh, we want to be part of a co-op and help manage the building and rent space. So that's like a real short. I don't know. Did I miss anything?
Stephanie?
Yeah, kind of going back over that conversation at the board, and I said some of this there. So first, I think there was sort of a conversation that did RPC really try to find a space? And that's a ludicrous discussion. They tried really hard. The problem is that their entire operating budget comes from grant administrative fees. Depending on the grant, those are prescribed. They looked at, I feel like, every rental space in the county. I know this because I literally talked to their financial officer about it at length, to the point of I almost started dodging her calls because every time she called me, it was a half an hour conversation about their space. Then she tried to really hard push the idea that they were going to build the only way that they could build is if we bond them. That's our bond. That's our risk. And given their sort of precarity, I do not understand. I know I've said this like I think at 4 meetings now. So I agree. I don't particularly like being a landlord, but short of just chucking them out into the street, I do not think that there is not an option that I can foresee. If somebody knows of, you know, a 60,000 square foot space that they could rent, and the same thing with the group that wants the gym and all of that. That was not their first option. They explored multiple other options before they're like, all right. So that said, I do still, as former finance chair and on this committee, don't love the idea of us being in the landlord business, but I do think a lot of the conversation before the full board just frankly didn't make any sense. Like people were talking about replacing the roof. We have replaced the roof, right? So I think what would be beneficial is if we had a document for the full board that came out of your meeting that listed what are the major capital projects that we see on the horizon and make clear the ones that are done and what, you know, we have that in the 11-year plan. What, to Ben's point, what is the percentage, as much as we can figure it out, that is RPC? What is the percentage that's available for rent? What does full bore rental look like? How much of it to the dollar, you know, at the low point and then maybe at market would be for capital? If there's any way that we could surge, I'm not saying from our money, but surge some sort of capital nest egg. And then like transparency on the time frame that we're talking about, right? Because if we are talking about a 10-year lease, I think one-page document that lays all that out, at least I still can't tell that full board which way it would go, but then I feel like at least it would be a more informed and like a decision that had some parameters around it. I felt like a lot of that conversation was just frankly nonsense, but like I couldn't just keep raising my hand and being like, that's not true. That's not, like the whole conversation about like, we didn't explore with any not-for-profits. I mean, I was in some of those conversations. We had those conversations for a year, 2 years, right? So there was a lot of things that were said in that meeting that just frankly weren't well informed, is how I'm going to say it. But that said, I do think that there could be a more concrete document for the board to look at. So capital list of foreseeable major capital projects, the breakdown that you just provided of rent. I don't have a sense of that building, how much is actually rentable space. And I mean, that building, the reason I think that building is ludicrous is how much hallway it has. I mean, it's just like never ending hallway with an office here and there. Yeah. And then the how much of that full rental at the lowest price point would go into capital.
Chair Locke.
Thank you. I had to come over here and, say yes to everything you just said, Stephanie. Yes to that. Also, something that I think will be helpful in, guiding us is if we all in this room bring our leading questions. Delitzo from RPC will be at the COW to give a brief presentation just about the lay of the land with RPC. But if we have questions specifically to ICRT or to their use of Brookings, he's available and he's captive. He'll be here. He asked to come, so he'll be at the COW next week. So I think that if we bring our questions about that, or we bring our lead-in questions if we just want to help it along, or we bring our attack questions, however, but bring your questions on Tuesday. He'll be there to answer them.
I think we're meeting after the COW aren't we? Yeah, for the facilities and finance crossover. So yeah.
I'm not saying, to bring the whole one-page document, but just to help begin the process of educating our 22-member amorphous blob. Multi-points will probably help.
I wish we'd had it like the the products of whatever that meeting is so that we would have some more cohesive questions too. Ellie?
Well, I think we can ask questions that will then also inform that meeting. But I was just going to ask, and maybe this is a question for Delitza, but how secure is the ICERT funding that they want a 10-year lease?
We as a board approved that last year. They have the grant. They had taken it over from the U of I, and they had at that point been in the research park, and that was not an adequate facility for them. And I know Mr. Wilson can speak to this as a fellow RPC commissioner. They looked at many sites, and it came down to between Brookins and one other site, and Brookins made the most sense for lots of reasons. So they are committed to this site, and if they want a 10-year lease, I think all of RPC would be committed.
Their funding is not federal.
I think it's Illinois, but it's indoor climate research. But I believe it's still state funded.
I just wanted to make sure it hadn't changed since.
Yeah, no, it's state, and I will say that like when they got into the ICER business, we were joking that we all should be in that business because the amount of money they got like changed dramatically, more and more and more money. So, and I will say somewhat differently related in my job, we have somebody who does like HVAC certifications and stuff like that at my work, and we could have 7 of him. There's no end in sight for that kind of work. I think that's one of the things this board has to determine is risk, right? And so what is the greater risk? Is it bonding out? I mean, ICERT is actually not the program at RPC that I would be the most worried about, given the federal climate. Probably Head Start is the program that I would be the most, you know what I'm saying? So if you think about, okay, well, they're consolidating, but that's also at our lowest price point. So if worst case scenario happens, and I don't want to be a doomsday person, but there isn't a need for that much space for Head Start anymore, right? I mean, the U of I just laid off 217 people because of the SNAP. You know how we have that small amount of people, 217 people. So we have like apparently office space over in ACES that, well, a lot of those people were extension. It's probably one of the biggest losses to extension programming in the history of Illinois, right? So right now we have so much federal precarity that understanding that I think is super important. But RPC is a division of the county. So the options are they rent. There is no rental market for them. So to be real, what we would be talking about is subsidizing the rent. There's no there's no way that they make money outside of, and I know Delitzo very well, he gets as much admin money as he can legally from his grants. There are guidelines for that. They're set in stone, right? So there's that. Then there's bonding out to construct, which is, even if we decided to do that, would not solve the problem tomorrow. We all see how long it takes to build a building. So at the very least, we'd be keeping it open for a few years, right? Or
and we're on the hook for those bonds.
Right. And then we're on the hook for those bonds. To me, that's a bigger risk than renting a building. Worst comes to worse, renting a building, if we start now, even if it's 10 years, is 10 years. There's no bond that you pay off in 10 years. Not for that size of bill. It would be at least 15 to 20 year bond, right? So one of the things the board has to do is either, and I think that should be the message of the facilities committee, the answers cannot all be no. This is a division of the county that has to exist somewhere. So if it's rental, purchase, rental outside of here, purchase a building, bond, like there needs to be a coherent alternative. And I think that sort of risk assessment, I think this committee's job is simply facilities and managing the facility. So I think driving the conversation, an informed conversation about what are the major capital needs, what does it actually cost, what are the utilities, what, you know what I mean? Like that sort of conversation. What does it cost to operate the building? And then what are the long-term capital? That should be what we contribute to this conversation. Finance should be walking us through the different financial implications, right?
Ellie?
Yeah, and I think that's why we wanted to have the joint meeting on this. And I think the risk comparison is an important point that we could include in that one pager for people to see the financial risk comparison.
And I know it came up in the meeting too, like some people suggested, well, then why is RPC a part of the county? And I think that's a conversation completely separate from this one. That's not facilities, that's not finance, that's RPC in the county. So
That's state statute. Like that,
Yeah.
they're like, that's the way the way regional planning commissions
Yeah.
are guided is by state statute.
So, yeah, that's not something that we would address. Daniel?
Am I remembering correctly in the budget hearings that they did have a budgeted amount for a new building? I thought that I mentioned that to you, that maybe they could help seed the initial little egg as sort of their investment to staying there.
I was also heard many of the conversations about them preparing for a new building. And if I'm remembering correctly, I do think they were putting money aside for what they anticipated were renovations that they were going to need to do. I think that's definitely some questions that should be asked. I don't know that I know the right answers, but I think that's a reasonable ask.
To Delizzo at the cow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe have finance and facilities figure out how they want to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, if something like a deposit for a rental agreement exists in a situation like that. But yeah, that could be that sort of thing where, you know, if that's allowed, where we have that money in the seed, and then when in 10 years they move on or continue with us, we consider moving it back.
Mhm.
So,
And just to correct my earlier math, sorry. So when I said the rental income would be $486,000, that was for the 33,000 square feet that ICERT wants to rent. Sorry, I wasn't looking at my chart thoroughly. So that's just for a third of the building. Yeah.
any other questions, comments? Mr. Wilson, I've heard from you on this one.
Thank you. I had a couple questions, but number one, it's okay if a board member has an uninformed, not full understanding question at the board. I don't think we should disparage board members because they don't have all the knowledge. If it appears as a dumb question, it's okay. It's a question and should just be treated as face value. I think I agree with Stephanie. What I don't have in front of me, and maybe we all don't have in front of us, is what it really takes to operate the facility. What's the cost structure? What's the expected repairs? So if the roof's been replaced recently, I don't know, is a 10-year life left? I have no idea. Or the HVAC system, or the plumbing, or the carpet, or electrical, all that stuff. It's hard to make a decision not having that in front of us. So it'd be good to have that. I'm assuming that's available, what the average maintenance cost is for this building and what the forecast is for the Brookins.
Yeah, all of that's in the 11-year capital plan on the website.
Yeah, I just don't have the website in front of me right now. And neither will the board. So that's having the information in front of us helps us and helps also convey to the board in a succinct way so that they can make maybe better informed questions.
Well, we'll certainly pull that together as part of our meeting when we discuss, but I mean, that's something that's always been there for people on the board to do their research from ahead of meetings. So just keep that in mind if you're listening at home, or anyone on the committee is a tool. If you go under the facilities committee page on the county board website, the 11-year plan is there. It does need some updating. Like that was drafted, I can't remember how many years ago, 3 or 4 years ago was Dana's creation of that one, but
Probably. And I'm thinking that once we, after the new year, maybe by next spring, once we've gotten through this kind of round of ARPA spending that we're doing, then this committee should review that plan and actually
Right.
reapprove and repropose it.
Okay. Ms. Van Schlernout, did you have a question, comment? I saw your hand up earlier.
Do we have a rental agreement currently signed with what are they called? ICRT? Is there an intention to do so? Like, is there anything legally binding us to renting to them right now?
No.
Handshake agreement, nothing. There's been no talk of because it sounds like they're planning on moving in if they're talking about renovation budgets and things. So like, where is that coming from if they don't have a guaranteed spot?
Well, I mean, they were doing that for all of the spaces they were looking at
Okay.
because they have to do such wide scale specific renovations. They literally have to build a home within whatever space they rent.
Okay.
So, just to have any conversation of if we are going to rent the spot, they basically have to bring in the architect to be like, could we do that in here?
Oh, that's why they wanted the gym, because it's a big, huge open space and they
Yes.
can do whatever they want. in it.
They're
Okay.
just going to basically kind of gut it and build
Build
a
a
home
house
in
in
it.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which sounds so cool.
Yeah.
Cannot wait to see this facility when it exists. Sorry.
Yeah. So what is the holdup?
For which thing?
Them signing a lease.
I have not given them one because the last
We
board
haven't decided
meeting
what to do with it.
kind of freaked me out.
They want that.
So-
They want that 10 years, and we don't know that we can give it to them right now.
Gotcha.
So once we know for sure that we can offer them a 10-year lease, then they're ready to go. They've done their research. They
Okay.
know what they need to do to the building.
So the holdup is us, not them. Okay.
And from my perspective, if we're going to do a 10-year lease with them, that means we need to rent all of that building that we possibly can.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, I feel that we need someone whose main priority is keeping that building full.
Right.
And if we don't have that, then we're not going to succeed at keeping the building full. And if we don't keep the building full, the building won't be financially self-sufficient. So to me, it's a domino effect. And so
Gotcha.
I want to back us up to the first one and make sure we're all on the same page.
So how full would it be just between them and RPC?
That was where we were at the 60%-ish
Is it
mark.
60 or yeah, okay. 65, 70.
Six,
something like
yeah.
that.
There'd still be, probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 enclosed office spaces that other entities could
Okay.
rent, aside from a handful of just assorted one-off rooms that
Okay.
could also be rented.
Now there are renters in there currently. Like, I mean,
There
Emily's
are,
group is
yeah.
in there, and like, do we have a list of like what is the current occupancy right now?
It's almost empty. So the Attorney General will probably move out maybe next month, and then that will leave the auditor's office and
They are planning on moving out or no?
the auditor's office.
Yeah.
There have not been any plans made on that.
Okay.
And then the dispute resolution has a very tiny space, like 400 square feet.
No. Okay.
And the a new group that is putting together a hygiene pantry wants to rent space, but again, it's
like a
like one
closet.
room.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, nothing of substance.
Okay.
Ms. Everyman, you no more. Okay, Mr. Wiggs.
That position, that building manager position, is that being paid for out of the capital projects money, or is that a separate part of the dollar per square foot?
It is not the capital. It's not the capital fund. So staffing is its own specific part of the total square footage cost. Yeah, because it would be that position, a janitorial position, and even possibly a maintenance position. So
But that is all included in that.
That was written into
amount.
what was figured out for
It will pay
rental
for
costs.
itself with
Mhm.
rent. Yes. Yes.
Mr. Crane.
Kind of seems like maybe a few or quite a few stars have to line up to make this a successful venture for the county, and I want it to be. But is there any way to maybe like a percentage of, oh, I just want to make sure that this doesn't put the county in the red. I want to stay in the black. Is there a percentage that somebody, I know you can't make guarantees, but likelihoods that this is going to be a successful venture rather than kind of a crap sandwich? Excuse my language.
Scientific terms. I feel like there's no guarantees in government and in life. Like we talked about before, there's a chance that any one of our buildings could end up making us financially insolvent at any point. And we're landlords here too. We have rental spaces in Bennett that are not county offices. But yes, I think knowing that if we move forward with ICERT and RPC with 10 years of 66, 65, 2/3 ish of the building rented, I feel good about that. Like, I feel like we're at based on like what I've been listening to, I don't think we're at a money-making position for the county at 2/3 full, but I don't think we're losing money at that point either. I think if we did have somebody focused on continuing to make sure that our competitively priced building stays full, that's where we're going to be like sitting pretty with this one and not feeling any kind of fear, I guess. Like, we'll have the cushion and we'll know that we can take care of things that are needed. Michelle, did you have thoughts on that? Or
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible to give a guarantee on that. I will say that, I've spent some time Googling around, like, if I wanted to rent office space, what would that cost me in Champaign, Urbana? And it's not cheap, especially if you're a nonprofit and that's, you don't have a lot of money for that kind of thing. So I think we have a leg up on that always, that we, without having to pay property taxes on our own, we can always offer something that is going to be competitive. But also, like, if we're barreling towards a recession, I don't know, right? Like, are more grants going to get cut? I don't know. There's so many variables for sure. So I'm not going to say for sure, yes, this is going to be successful. I agree. Things need to line up. I think they could line up. I think the bigger question to me though is what is the philosophy of the board, right? Because either, again, like, we're going to try this and have somewhere for RPC and ICERT to be, or we need to make the decision that's not what we're doing and come up with what the next plan is, right? Like, so I guess to me, it's not just like is this process going to work? It's a philosophical question of what are we going to provide?
Right. I understand there's many variables that go into this. I guess what I kind of need is a more likely than not situation.
I don't know if we can do that though. I know that isn't going to be enough for your position on this, but I get it. Yeah. So, Beth?
So, philosophy aside, we are financially responsible for RPC. They are part of the county, yes or no? We are
Yes.
statutorily required to provide them a home.
No, not a home, but we are statutorily required to
Have them.
Yeah, they're a part of us.
They are
Yes.
a part of us.
They're
So
a department.
they are a department. So
it
how
would
can
be
we have a
equivalent to
department
saying,
without a place for them to depart? Like,
yeah. I mean, are you going to kick the county clerk out?
yeah, I mean,
Right? Are you going to call Susan and be like, look, we don't feel like
Yeah,
you deserve the first floor, and
we got a better renter. You county clerk can work out of the U-Haul down the hill. Yeah, I mean, realistically, these guys, we are paying for their rent whether we are providing the building or not. We are the cheapest rent in the county that they can stay at.
Well, then hopefully we're not paying for their rent, though.
That's
Hopefully,
what I'm saying.
yeah.
No, my point is they are either going to cost us or we are going to break even on them. And maybe, should all things go right, we could make some money back.
I would
But-
say the way to phrase it now would be, we are subsidizing their rent.
Yes.
For sure.
But if they move, we are still going to be subsidizing their rent. It'll just be a hell of a lot more rent.
But in actual dollars.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Philosophy and philanthropy aside, let's not cut off our nose to spite our face here. Let's just accept reality that regardless of the risk, we are responsible for them. And the most responsible thing to do for them financially is to give them a home where we can control how much we are paying or not paying.
Excellent point. Ellie?
Yeah, and I guess to your question about what are the odds, I mean, the way I look at this, because I don't, at least from my perspective, I don't really see, like Beth was saying, RPC is part of us. We have to pay for them. So really the only piece here that is the question mark is, do we hire this person, and then can this person fill the space, right? Because Michelle or somebody else has done the math, right? So if we're able to keep the space fully rented, we should be in a good, or at least stable financial setting. If we can't fill the space, then we're paying for a person, but that person can always be let go.
I mean, if we're not filling the space, or we find that filling the space happens on its own, then you just eliminate the position.
Right.
I mean, you're not obligated to keep it if we don't need it.
Yeah. So that to me feels like a relatively low risk financially, compared to a bond, or where are they going to find affordable rent that we in the end have to pay for.
Beth?
So this is feeling like the grant coordinator all over again, where everybody's so worried about paying us pittance for the grant coordinator, and she's brought in like 17 times what we pay her. Can we just like stop dooming and glooming about the worst possible case scenario and just make a damn decision?
Well, we're discussion only on
I
this
know,
today,
but I'm saying like we keep going around and around on the same thing, but the reality is RPC is our responsibility, and we can either provide them a place or we can pay more to provide them a different place. We might as well keep them where it's cheapest, which is with us. And if we're going to do that, we might as well give the people who are already rip-roaring ready to go for 10 years and giving us money to rent the building, which already puts us at 60%, 65% capacity. Now you only have to rent out 30% of the place.
And I do think it's important to remember as well
And we are
that
competitive. I mean, it's like, this is not exactly, a train barreling down on us. This is a fairly neutral to good position to be in when you've got a building that is already guaranteed to be 60% full, and you just need to rent out the other 40%. I mean, we're not talking about, renting out the nursing home here, where, the thing's damn falling down around our ears and nobody wants to, be in it.
And I was going to say that we had the directive too that we need to start thinking about income streams for the county. I know this is not a guaranteed, we're definitely going to make a ton of money here, guys. This is kind of a roll the dice, in the hopes that we can fill that other 30% of the building with tenants that are bringing in income. And I mean, it's something worth trying, in my opinion, for that, to roll the dice on that one. Ellie, did you have something else? I think we're getting close to saying we should probably wrap this one up.
Yeah, only I agree with that. I think there's actually potential here that we could make some money, which would be fabulous. And I was also going to say, yeah, I think we'll have this joint meeting and, prepare the 1-page idea that hopefully will be helpful for everybody to see. So if anybody has anything else that they think should go in that 1 page, that would be helpful. Let us know.
And if you have questions ahead of, I forget, were we meeting on the 11th, the 12th? Yeah, next Thursday, I think, is the 11th. So if you have questions before that, feel free to email me, email Ellie if they're more finance related. But from the facilities committee standpoint, I can bring any questions forward to the meeting if you think of them after tonight. We can definitely share what we come up with. We can't respond to emails about it, but we could send out a sheet and say, this is what we learned in the joint committee meeting. Just want to keep you updated as finance folks. Facilities folks. You know what I mean. What meeting are we in? But yes, we're gonna talk about it more in depth in just over a week, and hopefully that'll bring some clearance to everybody's concerns, and we can move forward with this. I think we'd set October as the date that we were gonna try to settle this one. Jason knows. Any last thoughts on this one, Daniel?
Just thinking for the 1-page sheet, maybe include the doom and gloom, just RPC and iCert
Okay.
occupancy
Mm-hmm.
possibility in that equation.
What we would be bringing in if it was just no other tenants. Got it.
And
Any
that's how
other-
we're defining worst case scenarios,
Mhm.
just those two.
Right.
Is that
And any other
is that one
questions?
page going to include everything that Jeff talked about, the line items for the big budget expenses?
Right.
Okay.
Where we are with recent repairs, recent
Life-
updates, and then what
Life
would
left or whatever.
right? What would be the expectancy on those? That sort of thing. Yeah, we'll be looking into that as well. And Jeff will actually be in that meeting. Did you accept that? Yeah. So it's going to be the chairs and vice chairs of both finance and facilities. So we'll have a good, robust discussion there. Anything else? Oh yeah, Mr. Wilson.
If we're finished with that topic, I have one other question. Where did child advocacy land, or what are the plans for them if they didn't land anywhere yet?
I'm actually meeting with the state's attorney and the director tomorrow to talk about that. So I'll have more information after that.
Are they still in where they were before?
They were at public health
They're still at public health?
The end of this month.
To the end of September.
until the end of September. Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right. Any other business before the committee tonight? I have nothing else. No presiding officers report.